Yo, in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about PvP gear score scaling in New World. So I've been streaming a lot of New World lately per usual. And one of the things we found the other day whenever we were streaming Brimstone Sands is that there is a little new feature on the PTR that's pretty crazy. And I think it's going to affect a lot of things. So there's a lot of new players coming back to New World right now. And one of the complaints I see is that people are hitting 60. And whenever they hit 60, they're trying to play Outpost Rush. They're trying to play arenas. And they're just getting absolutely demolished, because in reality the barrier to entry to those two game modes is to have 590 plus or really 600 gear score to go compete in those game modes. If you do not, then you're going to be at a very heavy disadvantage, and you're going to go in there, you're going to take a lot of damage, and it's going to be very, very hard for you to be competitive at all. Well, right now on the Brimstone Sands PTR, we now have a little feature here. Whenever we go to modes, we go to Outpost Rush or 3v3 arenas, you can see this text here says the same thing. This mode has gear score scaling, increasing the gear score of all equipment below 600 gear score to 600 gear score. This is actually pretty crazy. So whenever we look at arena, there is a slight difference here. It says for level 60 players, this game mode has gear score scaling, increasing the gear score of all equipment below 600 to gear score 600. So the reason this specifies for players level 60 and Outpost Rush does not is because you can only queue up for Outpost Rush whenever you hit level 60. For 3v3 arenas, you can start to queue up for 3v3 arenas whenever you are level 20. Obviously, they're not going to scale your gear score up to 600 whenever you're level 20. So whenever you're level 20, queuing up for arenas, if you're fighting against a level 30, they're probably going to be a little bit of a little bit more of an advantage, because their gear score is probably going to be higher. But at those levels, it doesn't make that big of a difference anyway. So that's just a little caveat there. That's the difference. That's why this says for level 60 players. Now Post Rush does not. But what does this mean for the game overall? What does this mean for PvP in New World? In my opinion, I think this is a pretty good change, and I'll tell you why. Right now in the game, with the flood of new players, people are at a very high disadvantage, and it just feels bad. It feels real bad for those players. So now, whenever you hit level 60, you can now come into one of these game modes, have your gear scaled to 600, and you'll actually be able to compete. So you could go buy some like cheap resilient gear and have 5-piece resilient on your gear, and you could still be able to go in these game modes and compete, or whatever perk you're looking for, and go compete, which is really, really nice for those players, because it's very off-putting for new players to come into the game and just have no way of competing at all until you reach 600 expertise. And those two game modes, we're talking about Outpost Rush and arenas, are also very good ways to get gear and to get, well, Outpost Rush gets gear from the caches, obviously, but 3v3 arenas gives you your gypsum, Outpost Rush gives you your gypsum. And right now it's very discouraging to go in there and get your gypsum participating in these events or participating in these game modes, because you just know you're going to get demolished. You know, there's really no point. So you'll either AFK in Outpost Rush or go into arenas and just be a detriment to your team, and it's just not real fun. Right now, what this means for players now that have grinded their gear up, that does feel a little bit bad, right? I can see kind of both sides of the argument here, because it's like, well, I want to go into the game, I want to grind my gear up, and then I should have an advantage in PvP because I put in the work, and now I'm 600 gear score. I definitely see that side of the argument as well. But overall, whenever I look at the game from an overall aspect and look and see like what is healthy for the game, I think this probably makes the most sense, in all honesty, especially with the influx of players. These game modes are super fun, and whenever new players come in, they'll be able to participate in this, and I think they're more likely to continue playing the game and work towards getting better gear whenever they can actually go see what the game mode is like versus just getting wrecked. Now, if you are a player that's playing for a very long time, you still will have a little bit of an advantage, because you're obviously going to have better gear, right? Your perks matter a lot. So whenever you have like resilient, shirking fort, and then a weapon perk, etc., and somebody else is coming in there with no resilient gear on, but their gear score is scaled up to 600, you're still going to have a pretty heavy advantage. You're also likely to be at gear score 625 already, and this is only getting scaled up to gear score 600. Now, the gap between 625 and 600 isn't like enormous, but you do have an advantage still with additional attribute points, etc. So there is still a reason to grind up your gear. You still will be a little bit more competitive, a little bit bit better as a veteran player than some of these newer players. But I personally think this is a really good thing for the game. I can see both sides of the argument, but I like the change. So that's it. That's what I want to bring you guys today. This is a pretty big change. If you are a new player returning to the game, I think this will make you very, very happy. If you're a vet, it may or may not make you happy. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with this change? Do you like it? Do you think this is going to hit live? Are you excited for this to hit live? I personally think this is coming into the game. I think we'll see this with the Brimstone Sands update. I don't think this is one that's going to get reverted, and I like it. I think it's a good change. So let me know what you think about it down in the comments below. And of course, if you want to continue this conversation, you can come visit me on Twitch at twitch.tv/BDLG, where we're there every Tuesday through Friday at 8 o'clock a.m. But that'll do it for this one. We'll see you in the next one.